Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'm here today to present the fiscal year 2016 Financial Services and General Government Appropriations Bill. I think most of you know that this subcommittee has a jurisdiction over a very wide and diverse group of activities and agencies, including the IRS, the SEC, the FTC, the FCC, the Small Business Administration, the Supreme Court of the United States, the federal courts, as well as the General Services Administration. And the priorities and funding levels in this bill are the result of this subcommittee's work. We had 10 different hearings, and we reviewed 1,520 individual requests from members from both sides of the aisle. Now, the bill provides $20.2 billion in discretionary spending, which is $1.3 billion, or 6% less than the 2015 bill, or $4.8 billion, or 19% less than the request. Now, this allocation for the subcommittee is substantially less than it was last year, but it's sufficient to fund the necessary essential operations of the federal government. For instance, law enforcement and administration of justice are among the bill's priorities, and we are increasing funding over the fiscal year 2015 level for these activities. For instance, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Program, they receive a $5 million increase. The Treasury's Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, they're the folks that enforce the sanction programs. They receive a $3.5 million increase. In addition, we got a nice, healthy amount of money that's provided for the federal and the D.C. courts, as well as the supervision of offenders and defendants that live in our communities. Now, another priority for the bill is supporting small business. The Small Business Administration, they help create jobs, they help promote economic development. We provide $156 million for their loan program. That supports $23.5 billion of 7A lending and $7.5 billion of 504 lending. It also provides funding equal to or greater than last year for the Small Business Development Centers, the SBA Micro Loan Assistance Program, the SBA Veterans and Women's Programs, as well as the Treasury's Community Development Financial Institutions. That's called the CDFI. They receive an increase as well. Now, in order to increase or maintain funding in some of these programs, we had to make some tough decisions, and we had to reduce funding in other areas. We reduced funding for more than 24 agencies and programs that can operate with less, like the Federal Communications Commission and the Office of Management and Budget. Now, the brunt, to be frank, brunt of the reductions are borne by the GSA and the IRS. They're the two largest agencies that we oversee, and frankly, they both have recent histories of inappropriate behavior. The bill eliminates all GSA funding for new construction, but it provides a sufficient amount for repair and alterations. Before we add any new space, we think the administration ought to do a better job of making use of what they have and taking care of what they have before they get some new space. We also continue to push the GSA to develop an accurate inventory of all the space they have, and we designate funding specifically for property consolidation to reduce surplus space. Now, as regard to the IRS, they received $10.1 billion. That's $838 million less than last year, and it's $2.8 billion below their request. But it requires the IRS to make customer service a big priority. In total, the IRS is funded at about 2004 levels, but we include $75,000 more than they received in 2015 for customer service. That's to make sure they answer the phone and answer the mail of the American taxpayers. Now, it's been 2 years and 3 commissioners since we learned about the IRS and their inappropriate scrutiny of some groups based on their political philosophies, singling them out. And we also have observed that the IRS continues to make embarrassing management mistakes. And so to remedy that, we put some language in the bill that does things like we require the IRS to consider the conduct and tax compliance when they give out bonuses or rehire former employees. We prohibit funds to implement the individual mandate, prohibit funds for inappropriate conferences and videos. We require a report on the amount of official time used by IRS employees when they're working on union activities. And finally, we require extensive reporting on IRS spending. And finally, to increase transparency and accountability in some of these agencies, we do things like we make the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, along with the Office of Financial Research, subject to the appropriation process. We replace the indemnification agreements with confidentiality agreements for swap data depositories. We require investigative agencies to obtain emails consistent with the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, and we require the Federal Communications Commission to make orders publicly available for 21 days before the Commission votes on them. And we require certain court challenges to be resolved before the FCC implements the net neutrality order. So I want to thank all the members of the subcommittee for their hard work and their input in this bill. I want to thank Chairman Rogers for his leadership in bringing us here today, and I want to say a special word of thanks to the ranking member, Mr. Serrano. I know he believes there ought to be a little more money in this bill, doesn't like everything, but I want him to know I appreciate his approach to the way we do this. I value his input. It's made it a better bill, and I look forward to working with him and all the committee members as this process moves forward. I yield back.